It's time, once again, for Ask GC Anything, the weekly show where you, the viewer, get to ask us absolutely anything that you'd like. Now we're going to start...
as long as it's about cycling and bikes.
Yeah, true. It has to be on the subject of cycling.
Clear that up.
So the first one, let's crack on with it. Anthony Dion says, what is the best upgrade you can make to your road bike? Taking into consideration the price and the performance. And he used the correct hashtag, talkback.
He has indeed. And to be fair, that's a really common question. We do get asked that a lot. But I think fundamentally what you need to do first is identify exactly what you're using your bike for. So are you just commuting? Are you going to be racing? Or are you going to be doing sportives, for example? And then secondly, you need to look at your bike and think, well, what actually do I need to upgrade? Could there be some components that are particularly worn out, for example, and actually do fundamentally affect the performance of your bike? But I think, as a general rule, should everything be working okay on your bike and it's in generally good working order, the best upgrade all round, for not a lot of money, is a half decent pair of wheels. A little bit lighter, a little bit more aerodynamic. I think that's the general rule.
Yeah, and Si looked into exactly this for us in the following video. So if you click on that one just up there, you will find out his results.
The greatest benefit from lighter weight though comes from when accelerating and decelerating. It takes less energy to get a lighter pair of wheels up to speed than a heavier pair, making them more responsive.
Simon did have lovely clean shoes in that video, didn't he? It makes us proud. But anyway, next up we've got this from Luke Mack, who has asked, can you explain the rationale between the choice of tyre pressures? Now he said he's always ridden at quite high tyre pressures, 110, 120 PSI, but has heard that running a bit of a lower pressure these days is far more beneficial. So, do you want to elaborate a bit for us?
Yeah, well the answer, as is the answer to a lot of questions that we have here on Ask GC Anything, is it depends. So it depends on the surface of the road, in terms of whether it's wet or dry, how bumpy it is as well, and also how much you weigh, and finally how big your tyres are, and therefore how much of a volume of air there is inside. Now if you're on a very, very smooth surface, something like an indoor velodrome, then having a really high pressure will be quite efficient and you won't be feeling many bumps. However, the rougher the road gets, the more you're going to feel the bumps if you've got a high pressure. And that, for example, is why the rise at Paris-Roubaix, which is notorious for its cobbled sectors, will have very large tyres at quite a low pressure. The other thing though is grip. As we mentioned, a wet road surface, you might want to lower the pressure ever so slightly to get a bit more grip, and if you're heavier, you might want to have slightly higher pressure just to avoid any pinch punctures. Now, I did in Dubai earlier this year ask a number of the pros what pressure they were running that particular day, but do bear in mind before you watch it that the roads over there are particularly smooth.
And quite dry.
This is a good question. I think we have 9, 10.
Quite hard then?
Yeah, or more. I don't know. I'm not mechanic. I'm not care about.
You leave it to the mechanics?
Yeah. I believe to mechanics.
I must admit, Dan, I did think you were going to fly away on that magic carpet at the beginning of the video, but you didn't. Thankfully, you stayed put. But anyway, now it's time for the rapid fire round. First up, we have this from Jernej Laboda, who says, I'm suspecting that I never win any GCN swag because you guys cannot pronounce my name, and thus avoiding any tongue twisters on video. Am I correct?
No.
No.
Well, of course not. Matt did a great job just
Thank
then.
you.
Straight on to Horit Showers. He says, hashtag talkback, at 37, max heart rate should be 183, but it never goes above 166, even when at full pace for 20 minutes. Should I use 166 for my training zones? Well, in answer to you, the 220 minus your age calculation for max heart rate is very inaccurate. Some people have much lower heart rates for their age and some people much higher. So the best thing to do would be to get it tested, either in a laboratory or to do some kind of ramp test out on the road. Meanwhile, before you do that, I would suggest, yes, going with 166 if that's the highest you've ever seen.
Good advice there. Yeah, the other, it's just far too inaccurate, basically, isn't it? Next up, we have this from Matt Bark, who says, am I the only one who thinks the UCI Cycling Road World Champion could be based on world rankings rather than just one event? But that is a question, Matt, that many people have asked over the years. In answer to it, in terms of my view, I quite like the system we've got already. It's got a really rich heritage, and I do think that, well, basically, year after year, they do change the sorts of course, so riders do get the different opportunities to shine. You have a hilly course, and this year it's a course for the sprinters, so I'm a bit of a traditionalist. I do like the one day.
Yeah, the problem with trying to do it through rankings is, as Matt said, there are different types of riders. How on earth do you compare Marcel Kittel with Chris Froome throughout the season and make those rankings fair for both of them to have a chance of coming out on top as UCI #1 at the end of the year? So I too am in favour of different types of courses in one day.
It's a valid argument though.
Yeah, Ben Rollo has asked about the 6.8 kilogram weight limit set by the UCI and whether teams go a few grams over just in case the UCI scales are off. I actually don't know the answer 100%, but I think you're probably right. right. They probably don't want to risk getting any kind of fine or even the bike taken back and asked to put extra weight on. So they might well put a few extra grams on just to be safe.
Yeah, probably just best to say sort of err on the side of caution. This is from Stuart Roberts. A cycling etiquette question. On a group ride, stopped at traffic lights, the lights go green and the rider in front has a Matt Stevens moment and can't clip in. Is it okay to go around him or should you wait and keep your position in the group? I'll get you to answer that one.
Yeah, you hadn't read that before just
No,
now, had you? I don't know what the answer to that is either. I think probably I would just stay behind Matt. He just gets fed up if you keep overtaking him after traffic lights, don't you?
And you probably never catch up because he'd be waiting that long.
We are seriously considering buying him some double-sided pedals.
Watch this space.
Next up, a question that's come in from Sean Moriarty. Hey GCN, I was watching your video on the Vittoria neutral service car tour and it has me wondering, with every team having multiple team cars, why is there a need for a neutral service car in the Grand Tours?
It's a really good question. I think what you've got to look at is firstly, they provide vital cover in stage races, Grand Tours, and in single day races as well. And think about a mountain stage in the Tour de France, for example. Split over many, many minutes, sometimes half an hour, 40 minutes. Riders at the back end of the race won't necessarily have their car to cover them for punctures, etc. And that is when neutral service really comes into play, is when the race is detonated into bits. That happens in single day races as well. And also where it can be difficult to get team cars past as well. Another time that they're used all the time, and you'll see it a lot on TV, is right at the front of a race when a breakaway is forming early on and the gap is around 30 seconds to a minute, but not quite a minute. And neutral service will be there to provide cover for the riders there before their own team cars come up. So they really do have a place.
Yeah, so it is very rare that a rider will need to take anything from a neutral service car. And by and large, if they do, it will be a front or a rear wheel. However, as you will see in this video very shortly, they do sometimes use the bike, very, very rarely, but Vittoria actually set them up for the leaders of various points competitions. So Stephen Kreiswijk apparently had one of these bikes set up just in his dimensions.
He certainly did.
In total, we have 4 vehicles, 4 cars, plus 1 moto for the more difficult stages in the mountain. With each car, 3 bikes, 17 wheels, some on the roof, some inside to have a quick change and a quick assistance during the stage.
Finally, on this week's Ask GC Anything, we have this from Tom to be 99, who says, hello, I was wondering what are your guys' tips on road racing in the rain? Seeing as a full-on rain jacket is obviously out of the question. Thanks. Well, firstly, I think you can use a full-on rain jacket in the rain.
Yeah, that's certainly not out of the question at all. In fact, you'll still see plenty of pro riders in the colder, rainy races using a full-on rain jacket, and that's worth bearing in mind, the temperature that you've got along with the rain. Lots of them nowadays, though, have access to those much tighter rain jackets, sometimes called gabba jackets, either short-sleeved or long-sleeved. Reason for that being that they're far more aerodynamic and tight-fitting. But yeah, certainly nothing against using a full-on rain jacket in a race. Some of it might depend on how comfortable you are in taking it off and putting it in your back pocket as you're racing along if it dries out.
Yeah, it's a really good point, but well, aside from the things you actually wear, riding in the rain, well, there's a bit of an art form to it, and there's a lot of different things to discuss and talk about in relation to different skills out on the road. So take a look at this video where we rode in the rain just for you. It's real rain as well.
And whilst we're on the subject of tyres, try to avoid using brand new ones out in wet conditions. They will often come from the factory with a slight waxy type surface, which is a releasing agent from the mould. So use them in the dry for a good few miles before you take them out in the wet.
Well, that's the end of this week's show, but don't forget, if you want to ask us any more questions, you can either leave them in the comment section down below or go over to social media and use #TalkBack.
Indeed, and continuing with the training theme, how about checking out this video just here, where 7 ways to perfect your training plan.
Yeah, and just down there, some more tips on how to descend faster. And you might want to subscribe to the channel. It's free. Just click on the globe. I hope they put it there this time. Keep making us look stupid.
I know.